Yeah, I think Jess is trying to figure out her. Yeah, Jess, I think I hear you. Yeah. Hi,
Hello.
Jess.
Hi Tom, hi Matt.
Hey, how you
Hi.
going? Hey guys, Tom here from Touchscreen with another Around the World video. This time we are talking with Singapore Touch. So we have two representatives from Singapore. I'll let them introduce themselves. Who would like to go first and tell us what you do
Matt.
in Singapore? you've,
Uh,
you've been volunteered.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, hi, Tom. Thank you for having us. It's a great opportunity to share a bit more about Singapore Touch. Yeah, I'm currently playing in the men's team. This is my second World Cup campaign. I played in the one in Malaysia in 2019. And yeah, so basically have played touch since maybe 2016. Started off as a rugby player and then switched over to touch. Yeah, but really looking forward to the World Cup in Nottingham. I think it's a really good opportunity to just play touch again at a really high level. And yeah, it would be good to play in a different country other than Asia because when we were in Malaysia in 2019, I think the weather was very similar to Singapore. So Jazz, I think I
Yes.
can speak for Jazz as well. I think it wasn't it was it wasn't anything different that we're used to, and yeah, looking forward to playing in a different continent, a different kind of environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good. So you're when you say men's, is that men's open?
Yeah, men's open.
Yep,
So
awesome.
played in the men's open in 2019, and now playing again in the men's open team.
That's great. Awesome. Next.
Jess.
Hi, my name is Jazreel, but most people could just call me Jazz. I'm playing the women's open team this year. It will be my last women's campaign. I actually played in the 2011. That was my first women's campaign, and then 2015 in Coffs Harbour. That was my second. The third one in Malaysia was there as well, and I don't know, miraculously, like made it okay to the fourth one, and this will definitely be my last campaign.
Definitely. You
Super
sure?
excited. Yes, yes, I'm sure.
I don't
I
know.
asked.
Super excited.
New Zealand is a pretty nice country to
Yeah.
go to in
I
2018.
know. I'm so envious that the next one is going to be in New Zealand, and I'm not going to be playing anymore.
Well, maybe a member of a coaching staff or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So wow, so this is your fourth World Cup.
Yes,
That's crazy. And
I'm really old.
I feel I'm not going to make you feel old because I feel old as well sometimes. But so 2015, um, I heard so that was in Australia, and I heard that was a pretty
Yes,
wet and muddy tournament.
yes.
Probably not the best representation of Australia.
Yeah,
And
I was really surprised how many days it actually rained. Like I thought that it would stop after one day, but it actually went on for days. Like it just
yeah,
rained and it didn't stop. So we were just really happy that we could actually even still like have some games at the end of the tournament, just to end off the World Cup. So I thought that was great. It's nevertheless a memorable experience.
oh,
Yeah.
I can imagine one way or another. It'd be definitely something that you will never forget. And
Yeah.
Matt, you spoke about. So I'm saying that right? You're just Matt for short.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah,
Matt.
Matt. That works. Yeah.
So you said that the 2019 was very similar to Singapore, um, and I'm guessing very hot, very humid in Singapore normally.
Yeah, very hot, very humid. I think it was even worse in KL. I think we in Malaysia we had to break into quarters. I think. Yeah, I think Jess
Yeah,
could yeah back me up on that. Yeah, but it was unbearably hot. Yeah, we had
mm,
to stop games, break games into quarters, and yeah, I don't think even if you live here your whole life, I don't think you'll ever get used to the kind of heat and
no,
humidity. Yeah.
no, and we're going from. Well, I know there's a 5 year gap, but we're going from World Cups in Malaysia where it's probably in the 40 plus degrees Celsius or the 100 plus degrees Fahrenheit with 90% humidity. And now we're going to England, which is notoriously cold. But we're actually going in England summer, but even then it's probably not going to feel very hot for people from Singapore or even people from Australia. So it's going to be very different, but hopefully no rain.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
So how's the preparation going for the World Cup? I know I have a bit of background knowledge about Jazz's women's team because I've actually seen your team in action twice in the last sort of 6 months. I saw you at New South Wales State Cup. I'm not sure if you were playing at that time, but the Singapore Women's Open team were there, and at the Hong Kong International tournament that was in Hong Kong. Yes, I went over to Hong Kong just to watch the Singapore women's. No, I didn't know I was actually there with the team. But your team played in the mixed division, and I'm coaching the Chinese mixed side.
Oh,
so you actually played against
your team,
the team that I coached, and
okay.
Yes, it was a very interesting game because your team was obviously very, very structured in your press defense, and we never actually had come across that before. So that was very annoying. Thanks for that. Anyway, we talk about those tournaments in a sec, but how's preparation? Talk us about how the team started, talk about your training. I don't know who would like to go first, but yeah, sort of weekends, or is it a weekly thing? Do players live a long way away from each other?
I think I can go first. So I think the Men's Open, we came together sometime in June last year. There is a Singapore Touch Invitational June 2023, and I think that's the first time where the men's team came together, trained for maybe a couple of weeks, and then a prelim team actually just came out and played in that tournament. So I think the really good thing about Singapore is that it only spans from one end to the other end. It's only 42 kilometers, so it's not really far. Traveling time will never take you more than an hour if you're driving. So we have the luxury of meeting quite regularly to train. I think for the men's team, we train once, maybe twice a week. Try to get a track session in if we can. If not, we're on the field training. And I've been training since I would say June last year until now. So
wow.
In terms of preparation, it's a pretty long campaign. I think if I'm not
almost 12 months, 1 year of training.
Mm-hmm.
Is Singapore, are they invited to the European champs at all? Even if it's an invitational team, do you participate in European champs at all?
No, okay. We did.
I think the men's 50s, I think the 50s or the 40s, they actually went up to the Euro champs to play some games.
Yeah.
So I think every team in Singapore, we are quite fortunate. We are able to meet weekly, to get together, to run a session together. So that's the big plus, I guess. We have a total of 7 teams, I believe. We have the Opens, men's and women's, and then we have the Masters 27s, women's, 30s men's, 35 women's, 40s and 50s men's. Yeah, so it's a big contingent, I guess. Probably we did not send any mixed team this year. Yeah, so I think each team is training about 3 to 4 times a week as well. So we'll meet in smaller groups to just get our fitness session in, and then as a squad, we'll probably try to clock in at least 1 or 2 sessions.
Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. So 42 kilometers from basically countryside to countryside.
Don't quote me, but I think it's around there. It's about there.
Wow. So that's crazy. I knew Singapore wasn't overly large, but I didn't realize it was that small. Because I know the populations, there's quite a lot of people that live in Singapore. So just to put that into perspective, so socially, touch football, my social rep team or social club, we actually have people in our social club that probably live further away than 42 kilometers.
Oh, wow.
That'll come and play on a weeknight just for fun. Yes.
I think the bad thing, I mean, the challenge that we always face in Singapore is the land space. So we have difficulties looking for fields or like even parks to play touch.
Mm.
Like even socials is difficult and it's expensive to rent a field in Singapore. So most of the national teams, they share the field. So we don't really get a full-size pitch. I think that's been the biggest challenge in Singapore. Yeah.
So do you play on synthetic grass or turf, people call it, or is it natural?
Astro. Most of our fields now are Astro, so
Yep.
we don't get to play on the grass, natural grass field.
Yeah, because when
So,
I was in Hong Kong, that actually came to a shock to me. That was the first time I'd ever witnessed a tournament that was on artificial grass.
oh,
I had never seen that before. We never have that. I've never seen that in Australia. We do have artificial grass, but the only time you'll ever see it is like tennis or schools, or like private schools might have some indoor sessions with synthetic grass, but we'll never actually play competitive on synthetic grass. It's all natural grass. So something that I thought I'd never seen. I'm finding out that that's actually quite a common thing, and it does make sense. It's probably very, like when you say expensive to maintain like natural grass when you're so condensed with a population. It actually would be very expensive because I imagine just having ownership of the land itself would cost a lot of money, and then to keep it with grass on it.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. So Jazz, what about did you play in those tournaments? Like, did you come over to Australia and play in December?
Yes, I did. I was part of the New South Wales squad. So it was my second time to New South Wales, actually. The first time I went up there was in 2014, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Was just like playing with a club team, with some of my friends. And then the recent one, I thought that the number of teams and the level has went up so much, like the way the game is being played. It was a very young team, I guess, when we went up to New South Wales. It was quite a shock, to be honest. Like I think just playing with the premiership teams, like the girls were so fast. Like I think all the Australian teams, they are really how they are like on YouTube. You know, when you watch videos, you think that they are fast forward or they are speed up, but in real life, they're pretty much the same. Like they are really running at that speed at you, and you just don't have time to set your defense. You don't have time to get into position. So I thought that was a huge wake up call for us. Like we knew we had a lot of work to do, and we
And it was
had
probably
reset, we had.
Is it something like you definitely benefited from coming over? You probably, I assume that you probably learned a lot because you wouldn't get that many sort of competitive games in Singapore. Do you have any, like, who's the surrounding teams that you could play against?
No, probably Australia is the best competitor in terms of like if we want to get our skill level up. So I think another thing that actually took me by surprise was the touches that was being made. I think the game has become so physical, like compared to when I first started out. I mean, touch was always an introduction that was an alternative to rugby. So I think girls, like Asian girls specifically, like we are more inclined to try out the sport. But now it has evolved to be quite physical.
Yeah.
So I think that was also something that we actually picked up in New South Wales. We realized that we really need to be able to dominate that ruck. So that was something that we have been working on as well. So I think playing the mixed competition in Hong Kong definitely helped us a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did really well in the mixed competition. From what we see, like as bad as it's to say, the only time I really saw teams score against you was when they might have had a fast guy who just ran around someone. It wasn't anything that was going to threaten you when you play in the women's division. So that was good. That was a plus. Like they weren't scoring. Yeah, they weren't scoring structured tries. It was just someone might have been a bit quicker because it was a guy against a girl, and that's just statistics there. So, but no, it was a very young team. from what I gathered. He looked quite young, but a very, very well structured women's open team, and I can see you easily being semi-finalists at the World Cup. No pressure.
Yeah, I think anything can happen at the World Cup, you know. Like
Well,
it's
yeah,
the
we
World
could
Cup
get
after all. Yeah, like you will never know
rain.
like which team
could
just
rain, could be
turn up.
muddy, could be
Yes, it will
But
definitely affect the game.
speaking of rain, though, at least December last year in New South Wales, we didn't rain too much. It only had one bit of rain on the last day, and it was probably for about half an hour. So it was pretty nice weather, I think. If anything, a little bit hot.
Oh, it's all right for us, I think.
Yeah, so I shouldn't complain.
It's probably all right for us.
So I'm looking at, speaking of World Cup, I'm looking at the Women's Open draw. I've got the Men's Open draw as well, but I've got the Women's Open draw up. Where are you? Singapore. So I assumed that probably the team that you're looking forward to playing against is Australia.
Yes, I mean, of course, it's always fun to play against the Australians. Yeah, actually, we met them. I probably play them in almost every campaign, except in 2011. Yeah, 2011, I'm probably not in the same pool. I did not meet them at all. But in 2015, 2019, and this World Cup as well.
Yeah,
It's always exciting. Yeah, I think most of the time, like when they score, we are like, okay. And it's like so many of the players that you see on YouTube, you're going to actually meet them in real life. It's actually quite exciting.
Yeah, and it's not like they're going to be doing like their own thing the whole time. I'm sure like that if you want to go and speak to them, they'll be more than happy to speak to you. It is a World Cup after all. They're probably just excited to be there as everyone else. But is there any teams that you haven't played before that you're looking forward to playing? I can see, so Belgium, Canada, Cook Islands, France, Japan, Lebanon, Papua New Guinea, that's your Singapore, Thailand, and Wales. You're going to have 10 games. That's a big pool.
Yeah, it's quite a number of games. So I think we'll play maybe 2 games per day before, I mean, if we do get to the playoffs, then we will have more. I think our pool is a little bit tougher. What do you think?
I think it is.
It really looks like
I do think it is
a little bit more challenging. Yeah, so I think the Pacific Islands will probably give us a run for our money. And I'm actually excited to play Japan. We have not seen them since the previous World Cup, actually.
They came over and
really
played.
sharp.
They came over in March and played in our national tournament, and they were a bit of a surprise. Everyone thought, Japan will be the easy game, but they actually made the semi-finals.
No.
They were actually. I didn't get to see them because I was busy with the team that I was with, but from everyone's feedback was Japan was actually playing really good. Like they were really surprisingly good to watch. Cook Islands is actually probably based in Sydney in Australia. That's going to feel like you'll probably feel like going up against an under 20s Australian team. They'll be a really young team, and it's a big family of players with Cook Islands heritage there. So they'll be a good team. But again, they'll just be really young. There might even be one of the players who's probably not even 15 yet. And Belgium, I know Belgium because I spoke to Belgium last night. One of their Women's Open players was talking just like this now, and I don't know anything about the team, but they seem really cool, like really cool people. So, but yeah, that's really cool. So Men's Open. Let me just bring up the Men's Open, Matt, wherever it is. Here it is. Where are you guys? Pool B.
Yeah.
So you said you played 2019?
Yeah, 2019.
So you played 2019 and this is okay. So who are you really excited to play against?
So I think leading up to this campaign, we've actually had quite a few tours that we didn't have in 2019. So we actually went to Japan for a 3-test series in September. We played Hong Kong men's in October. Similar to Jazz, we went to New South Wales State Cup. And in March this year, we went to the championships, the one that you mentioned. So it's quite a bit of preparation, I guess. I think Japan is on our side of the pool, on the draw. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to play Japan again. we saw the Japan team in the championships, and they look quite sharp. Like you said, both men's and women's look really sharp. A bit of a shame that we didn't get to play the Japan men's team because they were on the other side of the pool. But I think Japan will be quite interesting to play. And personally, for me, I think I never played New Zealand before. The last World Cup was Australia, so this year this time around I get to play New Zealand, so that should be quite exciting.
And they'll be very different too, very different styles. Surprisingly, probably the line attacks are a bit the same, but you'll find yourself trying to defend New Zealand. You'll be running sideways and then this way and then this way, and they'll try and move you so much. Whereas Australia's kind of run, as Jazz said, run hard and physical at you, and direct. So Japan used to come over. The men's open team used to come over to Australia and play in our state champs. Since COVID, I haven't seen the men's team back, but they were a pretty competitive side. I imagine a few of them would still be there. I think Fiji will be a pretty cool team to play against. I was just saying, I can't remember who I was telling to, but I was over in Fiji last year, and one of the guys at the hotel I was staying at would ask at 3:00 on a Wednesday if you wanted to go and play touch football. And it was so hot and humid. I was at the pool and I didn't want to play touch football. So I went and watched. And just that hotel staff team alone could be the Fiji team. It's just, it seems like everyone in Fiji is just an athlete. It's crazy just how much talent is on that island. So it'll be interesting. I have no idea what their touch football team would be like, if it'll be just a developing team or if they're trying to stack it with the best team they can. But that'll be interesting.
I think we played them in 2019 as well. Their ball skills and their movement of the ball and how confident they are with the ball is something to be quite an eye opener. It's a bit like their sevens team where they can just offload.
Technically their sevens team is they won the Olympics. And it was just a sport that just suits Fiji. It suits Samoa. It suits Tonga. It suits those countries really well. So I can't see why touch footy wouldn't suit them as well. So all right. So we've just spoken about the World Cup. Another thing I like to ask about is social, like the social touch football scene in Singapore. I use the theory if I move to Singapore tomorrow, anywhere in Singapore, because it's 42 kilometers, so it's not that far, and I wanted to play just socially. Is that a thing? Some people have told me that their nations do pickup touch, and I'd never heard of before I started doing these interviews. How does the social touch scene work?
Wow. I think, like what Jess mentioned earlier, space is really scarce in Singapore. So I think just recently, last year, we lost one of our massive playing grounds. We used to play our Saturday leagues there every week for the longest time ever. But as of last year, they removed it because they were gonna, I think, build some residential or some constructions happening over there. So we lost our number one playing grounds. Currently, I know there are a few clubs that are actually running their own leagues, inviting other teams down for runouts, for socials, and on weekday nights. But I think with the World Cup coming up, that the focus is more towards preparing for that, and the social games are not as regular. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jess. I might be wrong, but that's what I'm aware of. Yeah,
that's true. Like I think the biggest challenge that we have as a community is probably what happened after World Cup. Because I think after the World Cup campaign, Hutch might have a bit of difficulties, getting the sport started, because there's no home ground for us to play our sport. And that is going to be a big deterrent for people to want to pick up touch. So we will have to, as a community, I think we will have to get together to see what we can do to keep the sport going for the next campaign.
So do you think the biggest barrier as far as getting the sport to grow is the field space?
Yes, in Singapore at least, because it's kind of related to the cost as well. It's expensive. There's a huge deterrent to enter the sport.
So what would be the popular sports in Singapore?
Football, like soccer.
Football, soccer. It's
Yes, you see.
just
So
Jess
are
and I
they?
are.
everybody plays football.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's probably, with our kids, that's probably the most popular sport in Australia, but we never actually really have any world-class players. The ones that you see, like we have football competitions or soccer competitions in Australia, but the good players in Australia will go overseas, will go to England or Brazil or somewhere else to play. So that's why it's not as a popular sport. When you get older, we have rugby and rugby league. They're our popular sports, which touch football relates to that quite well. So that does help touch football in Australia. So just the soccer or the football, I don't know what's the correct one in Singapore. I'll make sure I say it. Or you don't.
Football or soccer is fine. Yeah, it can be used interchangeably. Yeah.
So do they share their fields with you to play touch football, or are they like, no, keep off our grounds? My local touch football club, we share with a football club, a soccer club, and it can butt heads a little bit, but the majority of the time it's pretty good.
I think for where we normally play touch football now is actually at international schools. So where national teams train or where we're trying to find access to playing fields are actually at international schools where we have to, like what Jess said, we have to book it at quite an expensive cost. So if you're booking it, there's no conflict with football because you are there for that 2 hours. So but there are only a limited number of international schools around. So when it comes to that grand scheme of things, I think that's where the competition comes, where everyone is trying to vie for that few hours where we can book the field and play. We're really trying our best to see how or where we can actually play. Because when we've been to Australia, I think sometimes you just run on the park and you just maybe put some cones out. You can actually get a game of touch or social touch going. But right here in Singapore, we don't have that luxury, I would say. Yeah. So that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, it's a massive shame, especially because from what I see, that the people that do play touch in Singapore are so keen and so enthusiastic about playing, and they want to play more. Right now I've lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Sorry. I was being able to say something, and then I brought up the map of Singapore just to have a quick look, and it's on right next to me. And are you an island? Is that right?
Yes, we are the sunny island.
Yes.
It is a sunny island. Yeah.
So in the schools, you mentioned international schools. That's what I was going to say. Talking with Thailand, they actually also mentioned about international schools as well. Is that schools just for people that weren't born in Singapore? Is that what an international school is?
Yes, most of the students, I think 99% of the students are not born in Singapore. We do have a small percentage of them that's in Singapore as well. I think for touch, basically we don't start the sport when we are really young. So for some context, like in Singapore, you start touch only when you are 17. So I started playing touch when I was 17, and I'm 35 this year. So I played for exactly almost half my life. But I think overseas, like even for the international school kids, they actually have access to the sport when they are as young as 9 years old. So they start playing footy when they are 9, 10, 11, and I think that just helps in terms of exposure. So in local schools, like I was being brought up in a local school, so we only have a few niche sport that we focus on. Back then, I think now the government is trying to move towards multi-sport kind of learning. So we only pick a few sports that we would like to specialize. So we have the ball games. So we have basketball, we have soccer, territorial games, you have volleyball, you have racket sports, badminton. Basically, non-physical sports are usually the sports that we excel in. Archery, table tennis, bowling, try to avoid sports that have contact because of our size. So those are the kind of sports that the government is focused on. That's what I would think. It might just be my opinion. For football and soccer is of course a bit different. I think it's a sport that is enjoyed worldwide. So that is of course one of the sports that we focus on as well. So that is why, like, I think in terms of development and in terms of resources, that is given by the support that's given by Sport Singapore is probably not as much compared to the other sports. In the international schools, on the other hand, is a little bit more inclusive. So they have all the other sports, and each sport actually has allocated time and space for each facility. So hence it's probably more accessible for us to use the fields, to share resources. Yeah, that's probably a little bit of context of the makeup of our, even for my women's open team, like we do have quite a big makeup of locals and like international kids who are also permanent residents of Singapore. So it's not just purely like Singaporeans, yeah, that make up the team.
Yeah, okay. So if like you refer to local schools, would the students at the local schools have any idea what touch football is?
Not much.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
And did
that
they?
is something that we have to do a bit more outreach. I
Yeah.
think we
Because
are quite hyped.
in Australia, I was talking to Belgium about this as well. We offer touch football in schools. In sporting schools, you can actually make a sporting school for touch football. It's not as popular as like a rugby or something like that. But we also have so uni students can be offered a bit of money to go into schools and do clinics with the kids. So it might be just a little bit of a casual job. So you just get, if you do a clinic, here's some money to go towards your studies or something like that. They might have a Friday not going to uni, and they'll just go to a school and teach touch football all day. And so that's their way from where I'm from about getting touch football in the schools, getting the kids interested, and then they start early. And if you can keep a hold of them, that's yeah. So we always put a lot of emphasis on getting the juniors, getting the kids,
Yep.
and that seems to work. Like we like my club where I'm from. 10 years ago, we weren't a very successful club. And then we put a lot of emphasis onto the juniors who start at probably our youngest representative ages under 10s. So we put a lot of emphasis on that. Now you probably might have seen the under 20s grand final, Jazz, in New South Wales. That team won it. My club, Maitland, we actually won the under 20s. And that was that group of under 10s 10 years ago that started. That we put effort into. So it's a long process, but it's definitely worth it. And because we've done that, now it's sort of there's another group behind it that's coming through, and there's another group behind it coming through because those kids are finishing their juniors and then they're going back and coaching. So it's kind of like a
cycle.
Cycle. That's the word I was looking for. So that's it does take a long time. You have to be patient, and it does take a bit of effort to start that, but it definitely is worth it. But again, like if you go back to field space, I assumed these local schools, they wouldn't have much space for fields, or schools a little bit different. Do they have a bit more room?
They do have fields as well, but I think I'm not sure exactly how do they start a sport. Probably to introduce a new sport to the school system, because I think for government schools, you probably have to go through like a process to be able to get a bid, and to be able to teach it in schools. So I think that is a huge barrier. Like even if we are going down to introduce the sport, I think in the long run that is not going to work out. So I'm not sure what can we do. I think manpower wise, we is something that we need to look into as well. Hopefully,
Yeah.
after the World Cup, we have a bit more time and bandwidth to start the sport, to kickstart something. Yeah.
Yeah, I've said it to a few people. I'm hoping that the games that are live streamed or however that's broadcasted over whether it be YouTube or Sky Sport, or I'm not sure what the international broadcasting network is for the World Cup, but hopefully as many countries as possible get a game, like including Singapore. It doesn't always have to be Australia and New Zealand and England. It doesn't always have to be those three. And because if you Google or YouTube touch football Australia, that's just everywhere. But if I YouTube touch football Singapore, there probably isn't that much. And
Yes.
I think, I don't know if you feel the same way, but if there was more content on YouTube of your women's and men's open team playing, that might actually help, because the juniors might go, oh, hang on, we've got national teams, we're playing in a World Cup. Because I'd feel like that way if what's a sport in Australia? Recently, I found out that we have an Australian ultimate frisbee team that I had no idea about. But hey, we're playing in a World Cup, and that's how I found out about it. And now I'm seeing it all over the place. Is ultimate frisbee. Don't know how to play it. I don't even know how to throw a frisbee. But a guy I went to school with played for Australia.
Wow.
So yeah, do you agree? Do you think
frisbee is fun?
I can. Yeah, it looks fun.
Ultimate frisbee is fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like everyone's having such a good time. But I tried to throw a frisbee once when I was younger, and it went straight into the ground. I didn't know how to do it. Yeah,
Technique.
I don't have time. Maybe when I get older and I get some more time, I'll go back to the frisbee. But have you played on live stream before? Have you had a live stream game? Surely, Jazz, in one of your 3 World Cups, you would have had a Singapore live stream game.
Yes, we did. We did get a few live stream games, but we try not to let it get into our head. I think the younger girls usually they're quite excited. Oh my God!
Oh yeah, at the time,
live stream.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it doesn't really affect me. I mean, it's good to get a little bit of publicity, but we probably won't, it's, to me, the focus is the tournament, whether it's live stream or not, I'm going to give my 100%, So yeah, but it's good to be able to go back to the live stream and actually review your own games. So that's what I like. Yeah.
Matt, have you ever played live stream before?
Yes, actually, last time against Australia, 2019, the first game of the World Cup.
Oh, first game. And how do I ask how that went?
It was raining. Actually, it was a rare occurrence in Malaysia. That was the only time it rained in the World Cup. That first game that we played. Yeah, so we played Australia in the wet conditions. But another time that it was live stream was, I think, New South Wales State Cup, when we played against England for both the men's and the women's. That was when it was live stream as well.
Did I have that game on my channel?
No, I think the men's one, yes. The men's.
I did have that.
You did show one clip on it.
Yeah.
There was one international game from New South Wales State Cup, and I think it may have been Singapore versus Japan. And I was actually in the grandstand watching that game. Was it 2017? Or is that too long ago?
17. No, we didn't play them in 2017, did we?
No, I don't think we played.
2018, I think we played them once.
Forgive me while I start typing. I'm just going to go check this because I'm actually interested.
Did it happen in Australia? Was it in Australia when that happened?
Yeah, it was Australia. It was Japan and England.
Yeah, Japan and England.
Japan and England exhibition match in 2017. Okay, 2018. Sorry. Right. I was going to say, when you said Japan, it just triggered my memory, but it was a different game.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk about jumping into the deep end. Live stream against Australia for your first World Cup. That'd have been pretty nerve wracking, but it would help. Jazz, you said about looking back at your games? Do you film your training sessions, or did you film any games at like the Hong Kong tournament, the Hong Kong International Championships, or however it was called?
Yes, we did film some of the games. So when we get back to the accommodations, or even some of us when we came back to Singapore, we were just previewing the games and see what we can do better. I think that always helps. I think that probably was introduced to us, I think 2014 or 2013, like video analysis. And I think that just changed the way how you see the game. As a player, I'm a visual learner, so I think that helps so much. As a coach, I love doing video analysis with my kids. And sometimes it's just funny, like you just laugh at each other, like, hey, we saw you doing that. And I think it's just good. It's just unfortunate that it takes up a little bit of time. Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of embarrassing moments on a live stream before. And the commentator said, oh, Tom Taylor would give himself an uppercut when he watches that back. I think I had the ball and I just passed it. And the person that I was passing to was actually 3 meters behind me. And I passed it flat and the ball just went straight to the ground. Oh, no.
Oh.
And one of my friends was the commentator and who said that, uppercut. And I was like, I probably would. It was a pretty bad mistake.
So do you still play lots of touch yourself, Tom?
I play social, like all year. We have a competition in the winter. It's funny because my Maitland, we've got Maitland, which is about a 10-minute drive. There's another association, a 10-minute drive. There's another one, 20-minute drive. We've actually got a few associations that we can play for. I usually just stick to the one. I played in the men's over 30s division at State Cup last year. We started with a very healthy 14 and finished with a very unhealthy 10 because of injuries. We had, I think from when we picked the team, we had 11 injuries throughout. We played 3 tournaments and we had 11 players not being able to finish the campaign. So we went through so many different players. When we first played our first game of the first tournament, we trained well, we were fit, we were playing really well. In one of our games, in a space of 5 minutes, we had 2 shoulder dislocations. It was the worst injury riddled season that I'd ever been a part of. I don't know if I'm going to play this year. Trying to coach a team and play at the tournament, it was doable, but I was so busy. I didn't really get a chance to watch any games until late, like in the finals, so I could watch the semis basically until it started raining in the semis. But before that, I was either running between games or sitting down, catching my breath.
Catching your breath.
I did. The only games I could really watch was the one in front of our tent. So I think I'm probably just going to coach this year and just play socially. And we do run our club. We run a Premier League social sort of. Nice. Yeah, just in the lead up to the tournament. So if you're a rep player, you go into a draft. So you just go into a pool and you're randomly assigned a team for 6 weeks and you just play for the 6 weeks and then you have finals after it. So the games are pretty good because they're all rep players and they're just random. So I might play with someone from the men's 50s or the men's 20s or the mixed open or something like that. Teams are just completely mixed. So I do play a lot of touch, but I'll probably not going to play representative this year just because not enough time. Do you plan on coming to, or yourself, or I know you say you're going to retire, but does Singapore plan on coming to New South Wales State Cup again, men's as well?
Probably. I mean, I'll be super keen to go back to Australia, like any part of Australia to play touch, I guess. Yeah, probably the Queensland State Cup. I haven't been to Queensland State Cup before, so that is something that I would like to do.
A good one. Sorry, I was just going to say a good one would be our nationals, which is in March. So that's like the best of both. You have the teams from both Queensland and New South Wales, plus Victoria and all our other states as well. That's a really good one to go to. What about men's?
Yeah, I think it's it's a really an eye opener. At New South Wales, I think we were drawn with Penrith, Dawson, Central Coast. So the four semi-finalists were all in our pool. We had a bit of a shock. Yeah, the
That
four
was a tough.
semi-finalists, yeah, were all in our pool.
That was a tough pool, actually. Now that you've said that, Doyleson are always. So Doyleson actually, since they started, a fun stat about, because it's probably the most popular team in the New South Wales State Cup would be Doyleson. They've got a video on YouTube that's got like 500,000 views. They have never lost a round game since they entered the Premier League.
Wow.
So they're actually, since 2014, they're actually undefeated in the round games. The closest a team's ever got to beating them is Central Coast. One year had a draw with them.
Wow.
But yeah, so they've never lost a round. The only time they've ever lost games at these tournaments are in finals. Yeah, so that just shows the consistency.
Yeah, very impressive.
Yeah, there's such a good team.
Yeah,
their work ethics, like their midfield. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, they popularized a lot of. I'm going to get in trouble if I say they invented it, but they definitely popularized the midfield defense and the latch play. Midfield defense has always been a thing, but it went from just odds and evens style, where it was just every second person's up, then every second person's up, to a real structured way of defending the midfield, and Doyleson definitely popularized that because they started doing it in a time where their games were all filmed. So everyone had access to looking at the way they did it and the way that they did their subbing. So that's why I think, like, I rate Doyleson as one of the all-time great club teams, just because of the impact that they had as far as teams watching them and wanting to replicate the way they play. Like, I'm sure you guys use the latch.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually don't know the origins of that, but I know that I first heard of it because of Doyleson, and they were the ones that sort of, I can't find any footage of that latch style played before like 2015 when Doyleson are all over YouTube. So
it's amazing. The passive as well?
I'm not going to say started. I first saw that in 2017. No, 2008. 2018, they came to State Cup. It was actually the first year that they won State Cup, and
with the passive,
and that's pretty much all they ran. They practiced it because it's actually quite a difficult thing to position yourself because you're so far back. It's really an unnatural spot, so you can get in the wrong spot very easy, and you're essentially passing it to them without looking.
Yeah.
Because they're so deep, you can't actually turn that far. See, so they would have practiced that for hours and hours and hours to get that correct. And yet the grand final is on YouTube, and they absolutely smashed Para. However, Para did have a couple of injuries, but the semi-final against Hornsby, which was Dylan Hennessy, was probably the best one of the best games of touch I'd ever seen. I think it ended up about 4-3, and it was Dawson running the passives, and then up against Dylan Hennessy running whatever the hell Dylan Hennessy was wanting to run because he's Dylan Hennessy. But yeah, it was just probably the greatest player at the time versus the greatest team. And it was just an amazing, and it's unfortunate that wasn't on the live stream. It was the other semi-final. But yeah, Doyleson have definitely sort of revolutionized the way. And when we talk about Dylan Hennessy, he actually changed the way that teams had to defend. So are you aware that touch used to be 7-a-side?
Yes.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, so my parents played a lot when it was 7-a-side. And I think it was like 1996, it changed to 6-a-side. And not long after that was the shutdown defense started, because it was all of a sudden you had 3 and 3 on each side. It was, okay, you go back and you guys come up and shut down. And it was just sort of mathematically that worked. And if anyone had a long pass on them, the ball was going to be in the air for long enough for the winger to chase. In comes an 18-year-old Dylan Hennessy who can throw that long pass, but as a bullet. So he'd pick up, shut down, bullet pass to the winger, and you couldn't defend it because it was just such a fast pass. So the whole shutdown, automatic shutdown, all of a sudden wasn't a thing anymore because people would just practice that same pass. So Dylan Hennessy actually sort of changed the way that you had to defend because you couldn't just do a shutdown.
Yes.
And some teams have dabbled in different ways to defend, but I think it was him that made every team go, yeah, we need to think of something else here because it's not going to work for much longer.
Yeah.
So do you guys, I'm guessing if I asked you if you have favorite players to watch online or anything like that, a lot of people do say Dylan Hennessy. Would it be something different for you?
Dylan Thompson is also a brilliant player in my opinion for the men's game. I think he's really smart the way he set things up for his teammates. Yeah.
Yep. So he would be absolutely stoked that you said that. He's a very not so much underrated, but he doesn't get probably as much recognition because he didn't play much men's open for Australia. His time in it for Australia was more mixed open. And he, in his day, probably when he was at his peak, mid-20s, sort of late 20s, he was known for his just explosive speed. Like he was just off the mark. He was just, you couldn't catch him. And I played against Dylan Thompson a couple of times. And the tactic that we had was anytime you saw Dylan Thompson at dummy half, push the guy over playing the ball, give away a penalty.
Oh, no. Okay.
Because you knew that if he got the ball, you just turn and chase. He's gone. Like, he was just gone. And now he's sort of, like you said, organising. He's a really good organiser. His team won nationals this year. And if you look at the highlights, you don't see Dylan Thompson much. You always see him on the field, but he's now become almost an on-field coach. Yeah. And he's still able to play at the highest level because of that. So it's good to hear Dylan. And he actually his club is our next door neighbour. So we see a bit of Dylan Thompson around socially as well. Well, when I say his club, he plays for Doyleson, but his home club where his kids are playing, where he spends a lot of time, is called Walls End, and that's next door to Maitland. Oh. So and his kids are going to be good. So is Dylan Hennessy's kids. There's some highlights of Dylan Hennessy's son playing on Instagram, and he's just like his dad.
It's super athletic.
What about you, Matt? Do you have anyone that you like watching?
Yeah, I think before Jess said, I was going to say Dylan Thompson because I played against him, and because I went up to him and did the handshake. I was like, oh, okay, Dylan Thompson. You know, he's not exactly super tall, it's about my height, maybe a bit taller. Super chill guy, very relaxed. But when he's on the pitch, it just seems like every decision he makes is the right one, and he's just I think one thing that I've learned when I play against all these good like top teams is the amount of comms that they have on the field. And even though it's like they never ever get tired, every single time they're shouting different comms. And one thing that I am trying to, or what I really enjoy about teams like that, is how they play heads up touch. And I think that's something, maybe it's because of the rugby background that I come from, but I think touch sometimes gets a bit structured, a bit too structured here in Singapore. Whereas as a coach, when I coach, I like to encourage players to just play what's in front of them sometimes, because I think Dawson does it really well. A couple of times they identified the numbers and they just literally put it through their hands, and I think that's the easiest way to score tries. So
that's right. The best play is the one that gets you a point.
Yeah,
but doesn't matter if it's structured or not.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think to add in one more, if it's okay, it's Drummy.
Oh, Drummy.
Oh my God, yeah.
At his age, oh my gosh. I think
How old is he?
Wasn't at
Drummy is, I reckon he's 41, 42.
Oh my God, he's still playing men's open.
If Dylan Hennessy is the Michael Jordan of touch football, Drummy would be Kobe Bryant or someone who's just long.
Drummy is insane.
Drummy has just probably had the biggest longevity as far as him coming into men's open, and he's still. So we just put up a stat in men's open in our national tournaments. They run once a year. He has scored 151 tries. They put up a stat, and he's the first. They said he's the first ever person to reach 150 tries in the men's open division. The only other players that have scored more than 100 tries, they're probably around 102, 103 tries, and they're wingers. And Drummy's a middle.
Yeah.
So he scored 150 tries as a middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to learn how to dive, you watch Drummy. He's one of the best divers. And it would not surprise me if someone like Drummy revolutionized the dive and made the defense have to come in super tight because he'd just find a way between people. It would not. I haven't actually looked into that, but that wouldn't surprise me if he was the first one that came on and started diving like that. But yeah, Drummy definitely. I think I made a top 20 of our men's open players, and Drummy and Hennessy were the top 2.
Yeah.
Dill Thompson was 4.
Oh, nice. And who was third?
Peter Norman.
Oh, yeah. He's a competitor as well.
Yeah, and
his wife is also good.
Yes.
His wife is also a very good player.
Yeah, again, the kids are probably going to be very good touch players as well. But Pete's a very sort of, it's a different style of player. Like you won't see him on too many highlights reels scoring these ridiculous or he has in the past done flip tries and stuff, but he's more that gritty player, the one that does all the hard work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the reasons why he got up so high on that list, just because he does the underappreciated work that you need. You need players to do those jobs in your team. But that's cool. What about do you hear much of the women's players? I know like Danny Davis. I think it's now Danny Norman. So you've heard of her. Do you hear about much of the women's players overseas?
Lucia is also really good.
Mm-hmm.
Lucia Fowles, yes, and Sammy Jo Curtis. I think those are players that I really look up to. Like I think I first saw them playing in Sharks when they were playing for Southern Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they stood out to me. And of course, Kim Susie, I saw her in the previous World Cup. Yeah, she probably also does all the hard work setting up, organized team. Yeah. Those are probably the few players. I think from New South Wales, we probably have Sammy Lee Rogers. I think she changed her surname because she got married, right?
Yeah, so
Superstar winger.
Yeah, she's probably she made our
Best
top
finisher.
top like in the last 50 years, our top women's open team. She was named on the wing there. I think she's probably the best winger that Australia's had, definitely in the modern game. Yes, she did change the last name.
Yes.
It's not funny, but it is kind of like, it's kind of cool. She married Sam Brisby, who was a very well-known touch player in New South Wales as well, until he had to retire young because of a knee injury. But Sammy Rogers married Sammy Brisby, and now they're both Sammy Brisby.
Oh,
so they're both Sam Brisby. So I just think that's just kind of cool how they're both Samuel and Samantha, but they're both Sam Brisby.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so Dylan Hennessy will be playing men's open. He's still there, and he's probably still. If I had to rate current players, I'd still have him in the top 5. There's a young player that I've spoken to a few people about, and Chris Lennon. We agree that it's either Chris Lennon or Jack Edwards that'd be the number 1 currently, as far as form goes. I don't know as much about the women's team besides the New South Wales players. I haven't looked into the Queensland women's team. It's something I definitely do need to start doing, but I really only know the New South Wales women's players, and then the couple that are actually from our local area which are playing, which is excellent. Yeah, very exciting. What else can we talk about? Is there anything else that we need to talk about, or anything else that you'd like to talk about or ask about anything touch related over here?
Let me think about it.
Yeah.
Like our tournaments, our social, our anything, our school systems, or any players.
I know quite a few touch players actually transitioned to rugby league. Like even the women's game yesterday, I was watching State of Origin women's. Tamika Upton, Taranaki. They used to be touch players for Australia. I think youth level, if I'm not wrong, because my wife is a huge we watch a lot of league. Actually, I watch a lot of league, so I know Kaylin Ponga came from there. Yeah, my wife is complaining every weekend because I'm just glued to the TV, never leaving. she's not happy about that. But
my wife.
Yeah, but it's and because there's just so many games, every game is exciting, so I can't leave. But I know quite a few of the touch players actually transition to league. And is that like generally how things work? If you can,
So I was looking. I don't know how much you follow league, but I was just one of our regions, Sydney Scorpions, probably the most successful region in New South Wales, have an almanac where you can look at all the past teams. And I just went and looked at all their junior teams just from the past years, and I was surprised to see how many NRL players played for Sydney Scorpions, like Mitch Moses and Ryan Pappenhausen and those type of players, and even like as far as the girls go, like Emma Tonegado played fullback for New South Wales in our State of Origin NRL game last night. She still plays for Wollongong. She plays she doesn't miss a state cup. Kira Dibb, who's I think she's still with the Cowboys now. She played for Central Coast in the Women's Open for a lot of years. Obviously doesn't anymore because she's moved to North Queensland. But yeah, we do actually get a lot of players go from touch football into rugby league. So it's the only downside to it is with the reps, like with those big clubs now, they actually start getting players at around 15. So they could play touch football, and then all of a sudden they're 15 years old. They make I don't know, what's a popular NRL team? The Penrith Panthers. Let's say they make the Penrith Panthers, because that's in the preset. That's like a January, February competition. It rules them out for touch football. Yeah, so they go from touch football to league, but it's very hard for them to continue to play touch football because the league thing is just such a full-time. It's basically your full-time job, and they can't afford you getting injured and things like that. So it's great. It's great to get a career out of rugby league, but it does dilute the junior competition somewhat. But a lot of them come back and play seniors in the December tournament. Okay. So I think they're trying to figure out ways to keep kids playing touch footy. But yeah, it is very hard. There's just not enough time in the year.
Yeah.
Oh, Tom?
Right.
Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask actually, what is the difference in terms of style, like for New South Wales and actually Queensland? Like, do you all relatively play the same kind of game?
The only thing I'd say that would be really different is just the way they defend the line. Watching it normally, the way that they sub and stuff, it might be a little different, but the whole idea of they still play the latch play the exact same. It's just what they do on the back end of it just could be a little different, but that's with every team. But Queensland are really big on having links make the touch. Because if your link makes the touch, your middles can get back on side and you can play more of a man-on style. One of my videos is actually about man-on defence, and the examples are Queensland teams. So they're more all about manning on the line and getting your links what's called active. So they're actually up quite high, and any time you try to run like a rooster or a 30, you might call it a 32 peel or a 32 scoop or something like that. Their link will tell the middle to drop back, and the link will make the touch. And all of a sudden now the middle's back on side, ready to just man on. Whereas Australia, they have their links really deep, and their middles try to do all the work. And then after the touch, the links will step up and sort of cut some space and just make it very hard. And it's more that sort of channel style defense. Queensland took a while to incorporate the passive. They don't do it anywhere near as much as New South Wales. They do flat passes. Harry Griffin is probably the best example of someone that can just do it the best flat pass. He's coming back from an ACL reconstruction at the World Cup, so I'm interested to see how he goes because he hasn't ran too much the last year. But if he didn't get injured, he would be probably the best player in my opinion, in the world right now. But yeah, he's a Queenslander. They all do those flat passes, whereas New South Wales like zinging it out the back for a passive pass. But yeah, it's mainly just the defense on the line. So when I'm coaching a team at nationals, we'll be like, all right, if we're going up against a Sydney team, this is what we're going to do. If we're going up against a Brisbane side, they're going to try this. So we've got to do this. It's going to be different. Yeah, and Brisbane and Queensland sides love the ninja play, especially Brisbane Cobras. They love the reverse quickie ninja. Can't get enough of it. So we're always got to be prepared for that. But yeah, that's it's not the biggest difference, but yeah, that's what I would say. But like that style of line defense, that man on, a lot of New South Wales teams are starting to do that. I think it's more difficult, but if you can get it right, it's going to save a lot more tries. But it's just harder to get right. It's one of those things. That's a good question. I haven't been asked that one before.
Yeah, so as in like now, like there's probably only 2 states in Australia that is really, really good in touch. You know, like what about like, are you aware of like how Australia or TFA is actually going to help the other states, or it's just going to maintain as status quo?
Yeah, so
like,
TFA actually employ staff in all of our states. So they actually advertise someone for Western Australia, like game development officers, to work full time for TFA and go around promoting the game and getting the education around touch football. So their job is to get players. But Western Australia, it's funny, this shirt here was actually modelled off the Western Australia. So the colours are the same as the Western Australia team.
The colours are the same, yes.
Yeah, so I actually traded a shirt and I started wearing the Western Australia shirt in all my videos. And then it changed to this from KRP Sportswear, by the way. Great stuff.
Okay.
Just a little plug to KRP Sportswear. So we have a youth nationals, which is under 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s, which is played normally in Queensland, and Western Australia and Tasmania have been able to send teams for every division.
Wow.
Oh,
so then, yeah, so they've worked really hard at getting those numbers. So the numbers, especially in the juniors, are really healthy. And the Western Australian Men's Open team came over and they were playing like all the elite regions, and they were doing actually quite well. It was only the back end of the games where the more experienced teams would start putting more tries on them. But if you watched, say, Sydney Scorpions or South Queensland Sharks against Western Australia, it still would be a very good game, very fast-paced game to watch. So they're doing quite well. The only team I think that probably is lacking a little bit would be Northern Territory, but it's very hard. There's not as many people that live in the Northern Territory. South Australia made a grand final a couple of years ago in the women's 27s, and Victoria is normally thereabouts as well. I think in about 2015 they won the women's youth or T League, we called it, which is basically under 20s. So they've had some success there as well with the girls. But yeah, so TFA, they do employ people to be full-time game development in the states as well, and then New South Wales will employ their staff to go in specific schools as well and teach, and I'm sure Queensland do the same thing. So yeah,
that's good.
It would be very hard in Western Australia because Perth is the capital of Western Australia, but it's our biggest state, and it would be extremely difficult to actually train if you had players all over that state. Like it's like Singapore. I'm just going to look at Singapore is probably a quarter of the size of Sydney in Australia, but probably has more people living there. Yeah. Do you know how many people live in Singapore? Like what the population is?
I think it's about 5.5 million.
Yeah, that'd be more than Sydney, I think, or about the same. Well, that's crazy. How do you all fit in there? No wonder you can't find any
that's why.
fields.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It's really interesting because like we have times where we might have a double booking on our field and we have to start an hour later for our training, and everyone makes a big deal about it. And talking to Singapore Touch and your struggles to get on a field, it just really puts things in perspective, I guess, at home on actually how fortunate we are. Not to rub it in or anything, but it's not actually that difficult to find a field over here. So what do you think, is there anything outside of field space that could help, like with TFA? Some other nations I've talked about linking them up with a coach over here that could do some satellite sessions. However, I believe the women's open coach is actually quite a pretty well respected coach. I don't know who the men's open coach is, but I think you've got someone from New Zealand coaching your team, Jazz.
Yes, Chris Wall.
Mm-hmm.
He has been the head coach for the past 3 campaigns as well. So he also took up the head coach role for this campaign.
Mm-hmm.
He used to play for New Zealand Men's Opens, if I didn't remember wrongly. So he has friends from New Zealand where he will exchange ideas.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
it's quite good. Like, and I think the Kiwis probably play a very different style, like you mentioned. So it's interesting, when you actually start, like as a player for me, like when I start listening and watching the different style of play, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, New Zealand is hands down the most entertaining style to watch.
Yes, they make touch so fun. Like they make
Yes,
it fun,
we've
Yeah.
just started, like the teams that I coach, we're actually starting to use one touch and two touch games, which is something that's very popular in New Zealand, and it gets you really working off the ball, and it like the eyes up style of play, because you only get one touch. You get touch, you turn the ball over, so everyone's got to be moving, everyone's got to be like switching, changing spots on the field, keeping the ball live, and having that as a fundamental skill is just so good. And as much as I shouldn't say that, I can see the day is coming when New Zealand beat Australia because they're just nipping at our heels every time. Or I will always go for Australia, but yeah, I can just see that the day is coming that New Zealand are going to get the trophy one at a World Cup. So it would be fitting if it's not this one and it is next one, but I have no
The
idea. But
next one.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So just watching a New Zealand, like a just a national tournament. I think there was one in Whakatane or something like that, and the touch footy there is just so good. Like I did a game analysis on one of them, and it was just, there was stuff there that I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, let's try and tell you what it is, but I've never seen that before because it's New Zealand stuff. I don't even know if they meant to do it. But whereas Australia, like we say before, is just more direct running, discipline, and it's fun, but it's not New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that sort of with what Chris does? I didn't get to speak to Chris at Hong Kong, but he loved wearing his hoodie. I assume that
Yes,
it was
he's a hoodie
because,
guy.
yeah, so I said that, I was like, I said to someone, I was like, he doesn't like taking his hoodie off. Oh, and they said, oh, probably because it's really cold over in Hong Kong today compared to what they're used to in Singapore. It was actually quite a cool day in Hong Kong.
Yeah, he's a hoodie guy. He usually
Yeah.
wears his hoodie. Yeah. So yeah, he shares a lot of like what he used to do with New Zealand back then, like the culture, how a team should be like. So it's nice to hear all the different stories, I guess. Yeah. And New
Did
Zealand
you?
is probably not as accessible for Singaporeans. Like we don't go there for tournaments compared to Australia. So I
Mm.
think just hearing his perspective is it's always nice to hear him share his stories. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, I might get to meet him at the World Cup and see if he's wearing a hoodie. If he's wearing a hoodie when I meet him, I'll make sure I'll tell you. I was like, he was wearing a hoodie. So we'll see. Do you reckon he will be?
Yes.
Yep. So you both mentioned that you're coaching as well. You okay? You're all good. You okay?
Yes, I've just recovered from a cough.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I got one of those coming home from Hong Kong. I got a bad taste of COVID. So you both said before that you coach. Matt, we might go to you for this one first, and let Jazz sort of recover from that. So you did mention that you coached teams as well.
Yeah, so actually Jess and I were both working as in an international school, but different international schools. So I coach the girls at my international schools from under 11 all the way to under 18. And Jess is coaches as well at the other international school. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that what age is that? Is that like a high school? I don't know if you could call it high school in Singapore.
Yeah, it's probably junior, middle, and high. Yeah, so
Okay.
middle school is between under 12 to under, I would say, 14, and then under 16 to under 18 is like high school.
And do they
Yes,
play
that's right.
Do they play games, or is it just sort of training? Do they play other schools?
Yeah, they do. So we actually take part. So the school that I'm at, we actually take part in this like kind of international school conference where Jazz's school take part as well. However, they are actually in another tournament, which is the CSAC tournament, which my school is not in. So every year, like we play in a certain season, so it runs from November to February, if I'm not wrong. That is when there's a touch season for the older girls, and early in the year from August to maybe November is the middle school, and then the last season, which is from February to May, it's the junior school. So every age group gets a dedicated time to play touch against the other schools.
Awesome. Yeah. And do you guys enjoy coaching?
Yeah. yeah, I do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love coaching. I'm super passionate for my kids whenever like I see them progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be quite a handful with the really young ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm better with the older kids because in terms of energy, like I cannot match the young kids.
So is Singapore looking at teams for like the Youth Asian Cup? I think that's next year. Someone told me that, well, it was actually the people from China were telling me that it's actually in Coffs Harbour, the Youth Asian Cup next year.
We have not heard anything about it actually, but
I may have heard wrong. So
yeah, but if there's a youth tournament, I will definitely be keen to send team up, just to keep things going for the next cycle.
And do you think Chris needs an assistant coach for when you retire at the end of the World Cup, for maybe to go to New Zealand?
Hopefully, I hope he. I mean, I don't know whether he will still be coaching, to be honest. I'm actually really glad that he actually took up the recent campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because to do it for the fourth time, I think it's a lot of stress. I think as a head coach, it's quite stressful. So I think it's quite admirable that he actually took up the job. So I'm not sure whether he'll be keen to do it again. But I mean, if he's going back to New Zealand, he might actually consider taking it up. As for me, I'm not too sure what is going to happen, but I'll probably need a break after this cycle.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have like other teams apart from Women's Open? Do you have like a senior women's division that you could play in, or a mixed seniors division?
Yes, we do have a senior division, but I don't know. I have not think too far yet. Yeah, for now, I think probably after the World Cup, I would like to do some development for the youth players.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's what I want to help to kickstart. And then when the time comes, then I'll think about it again, I guess.
It's amazing. I'm very surprised they actually put out the information about the next World Cup before this World Cup actually happened. Because I was worried that when they said that New Zealand was going to be the 2018, but 2018 World Cup, that there would be some New Zealand players that would decide not to go to this World Cup because of how expensive it is for like to travel to travel to England, because that's the only bad thing I've heard about England. It's just very hard to get there unless you're already sort of over in the Europe side of the world.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Well, have we got anything else? Because it's I know it probably doesn't seem like it's actually getting quite late here because of the time difference. Anything else you'd like to have a chat about before I see you guys at the World Cup?
No, Tom. Thank you so much for having us.
What games should I watch of yours? Is there any specific games? Because I'm going to try, and anyone that I'm speaking to on this series, I'm going to try and make sure I get and watch a game and come and say hello. Anyone, should I watch your game against Australia?
Yes, why not? Sure. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't clash with your game. You'll be coaching, right?
Yeah, China mixed open. So we're in the mix. So I know you said Singapore doesn't have a mixed open. Yeah.
Yeah. If it doesn't clash, it'd be nice to have you come watch our games and just have a chat. You can chat with Chris then.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself. And what game can I watch of yours, Matt? Where are you? Japan. I might watch a Japan game if I can.
I think that would be quite exciting that day.
Yeah, or even New Zealand. Actually, I was talking. I know it was not Tonga. It was Samoa that I spoke to. So yeah, awesome. Well, guys, thanks very much for coming on and having a chat. It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, not a problem. Any time that you want to have more chats, I'll send through. I don't know if you use WhatsApp, but I'll send through my number. Save you sending emails because it's a number might be a little bit better. But I'll also put links to your social media stuff in the description for anyone who wants to follow. But yeah, I'll see you guys at the World Cup. So good luck with the rest of your training, and see you in England. Thanks, guys.
See you in England. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, Jess.
Bye.
Screen.